Hello friends, welcome to Ecoholics YouTube channel. My name is Avinash Agarwal and in this video I'll be discussing with you economics current affairs for 30th August 2024. Friends, I've selected 3 articles from the Mint newspaper. In all these 3 articles, we'll be discussing something which I have never discussed in the last 97 videos that I have made from May, June, July and now in August. Right? तीनों articles कुछ नया आपको बताने वाले हैं. पहला आर्टिकल का टॉपिक इज ओल्ड फैशन्ड, दैट हाउ डू यू क्रिएट जॉब्स इन इंडिया, how do you promote labor intensive growth in India, how can we create more jobs even as our growth rate is expanding. So topic is old fashioned, but जो इसके अंदर insights है, जो analysis है, जो आपको data मिलेगा, that is going to be fabulous. Okay, so please make sure that you are thoroughly understanding what I am saying over here. Second article is talking about the factor of heat in determining food prices in India, right? So अभी तक हमें लगता था कि rainfall, reservoir level, these are very important factors in determining how the food inflation will behave. Now research is showing that heat is an equally important factor that we need to bring into consideration to see how food inflation will be behaving. And the third article is talking about urbanization related issues. So this is my, I think, first or second instance of discussing urbanization related issues. So this in itself is a very important discussion, because urbanization obviously is an important topic in most examinations that we are going to come across, right? So let us start with our discussion. We'll come back to these questions after the end of each article. Okay, so growth employment paradox अंडरस्टैंड कर लेते हैं पहले तो इंडिया के अंदर, दैट वी आर द फास्टेस्ट ग्रोइंग मेजर इकोनॉमी, बट जब एम्प्लॉयमेंट के टर्म्स में देखिए, सो वी आर नॉट क्रिएटिंग जॉब्स एज फास्ट एज वी वांट टू क्रिएट जॉब्स. ठीक है, सो economic growth in GDP terms, fabulous, 5 star, 7 star, full marks, no problem. But when it comes to employment growth, we are performing below average. It's not working. Okay, so to put some numbers, and these numbers are very important for you, I'm highlighting it in green so that you can pick it up. GDP grew at 6.5 to 7% between this time frame. Employment grew at only 1.9%. I have said this in my classes, I'm saying it again, right, that there will come a time in India where we will stop talking about GDP growth rate and we will start talking about employment growth rate. Because if employment growth rate is good, GDP growth rate by default will be good. You don't need to measure it. But if GDP growth rate is good, there is no guarantee that employment growth rate will be good. Because आप production बढ़ा सकते हो using productivity growth. आप production बढ़ा सकते हो using machines, using capital intensive growth. So GDP growth is not an assurance that jobs will be created, but jobs being created will 100% assure that growth is in the right direction. Why? Because production will increase, demand will increase, income will increase, per capita income will increase, purchasing power will increase, and so on and so forth. Anyways, so see, employment growth is lagging behind, right? Now the author is making a very fine distinction and a very important distinction. Author is saying that employment growth kam hai chalega, right, as compared to output growth, employment growth kam hai chalega. That is not a problem. Chalo, we can live with it, because see, productivity will increase, right? There will be better ways of doing the same things, right? So we will be more efficient, etc etc. कोई problem नहीं है कि let employment growth be below output growth. That is not a problem. Problem क्या है कि employment growth is less than the growth of labor supply. That is the problem, and this is a very important point, right? That अगर labor supply is increasing by X and jobs are getting created by Y and Y is less than X, then this is a real problem. And some numbers are presented over here. These numbers are very instructive. These numbers are very helpful. What is this number telling you? That between this time period, right, employment grew from 466 million persons to 577 million, but estimates show that labor supply has increased from 477 to 595 million, right? So that means that 10 million were unemployed, let us say 2011-12, that number increased to 19 million in 22-23, right? And that shows that unemployment in India is growing by 5.6%. Unemployment is growing in India by 5.6% on a per annum basis. This number is very important. What is this number proving to you over here? This number is proving to you over here that backlog or the number of unemployed people in India is increasing. ये नंबर आपको प्रेजेंट करना आना चाहिए आपके आंसर्स के अंदर नेक्स्ट टाइम से. Whenever you are speaking about unemployment, you will present these numbers. If this is clear, I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section. राइट आई एम डेड श्योर कि बहुत सारे लोगों को ये नंबर्स मालूम ही नहीं होंगे, राइट, एंड आई एम नॉट इवन शाय टू से कि मुझे भी नहीं मालूम रहते, राइट, मैं भी सीख रहा हूँ आप लोग के साथ. एवरीबडी इज अ स्टूडेंट ऑफ इकोनॉमिक्स ऑब्वियसली. यू कीप रीडिंग, यू कीप एनालाइजिंग एंड यू कीप एडिंग टू योर नॉलेज. ठीक है, so this is what the problem in India is, that the rate of growth of jobs or the rate of creation of jobs is less than the rate of increase in labor supply, right, and the backlog is getting created. And इसके अंदर you have to realize, right, that जो हमने definition use करा है employment का, that's a very very vast and very broad definition of employment, right. If you look at our official statistics, ठीक है, so they're using very vast definitions or very broad definitions of unemployed, right. So even if, let's say for example, you have worked for 1 hour a day for just 30 days during the preceding 365 days, you will be counted as unemployed. I am repeating this particular bracketed point over here. Even if you work for 1 hour a day for just 30 days during the preceding 365 days, you are counted as unemployed. Abhi 1 घंटा last 30 days के अंदर, with no disrespect, if I take up a job on some dhaba cleaning some tables etc, and the job is fine because no job is good or bad, let's say, ठीक है, so I would be counted as employed. But is that the definition of employment that we are looking at in our mind, right? Do you want to do that job on a day-to-day basis? Do you want to do that job to support your family? Doesn't make sense, right? Anyways, so we have understood the problem. Now what is the solution? Okay, now solution, author is exploring the solution in this wage rental ratio, right, in the wage rental ratio. Okay, that is where the author is trying to find the solution. Now let me explain the wage rental issue to you. So if you hire labor, what do you need to pay? You need to pay wages. And if you hire capital, what do you need to pay? You need to pay rent, right? You need to pay interest. Okay, so the idea over here is that we are essentially talking about this ratio, right? Wage on the numerator side and rent for the capital or interest for the capital on the denominator side. This is the ratio which the author will be exploring to find answer to this particular problem. ठीक है, तो प्रॉब्लम समझा दिया मैंने आपको. ठीक है, सो ऑथर क्या बोल रहे हैं, राइट, ऑथर बोल रहा है कि वी नीड टू लोअर दिस रेशियो. लोअर दिस रेशियो कैसे कर सकते हैं? वी कैन आइदर रिड्यूस दिस न्यूमरेटर और वी कैन इंक्रीज दिस डिनोमिनेटर. नाउ लेट अस डिस्कस बिटवीन यू एंड मी. पहले रीड करने के पहले सारी चीजों को लेट्स डिस्कस, लेट्स अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट इज हैपनिंग. ठीक है, कैन वी लोअर वेजेस इन इंडिया? नो, बिकॉज दे आर ऑलरेडी लो. चाहे कैजुअल वर्कर हो, चाहे रेगुलर वर्कर हो, any kind of worker, wages are already low. So there is, first option is out of the park. Lowering the wages is not an option. We don't even want to do it. It's not even desirable. It is not even possible. In fact, we want to do the opposite of it. We want to increase the wages. ठीक है. Second option, increase the denominator, because आपको ratio को कम करना है. If you want to reduce the ratio overall, there is only two ways of doing it. Lower the wages, increase the rental for the capital. So can we increase the rental for the capital? No. We can't increase the rental for the capital. Why? Because if you increase the interest rate, ठीक है, then your investments will stop dead in their track. अभी नया investments are starting by the private sector, and if we tell them that we are going to raise the interest rate, okay, then that is going to be deeply problematic. So you understand that from an economics point of view, there is no harm in saying that okay, let us lower the wage rental ratio, right? Okay, so when you are lowering the wage rental ratio, what is happening is that wages don't pinch you, and rent or the rent of capital or the interest starts pinching you. So उसमें क्या होता है कि since wages are not pinching you and since rent of capital is pinching you, so you will hire more laborers because wages not pinching you, and you will hire less capital because rent is pinching you, right? So automatically you will go towards labor intensive growth. I will repeat myself only once, right? That if wage rental ratio is low, that means that wage is not pinching you, right, but rent is pinching you. That's what the meaning of low wage rent ratio is. So you will hire more labor and you will hire less capital, and therefore you will go on the path of labor intensive growth. So from a theory standpoint, this is absolutely correct, but करे कैसे, practical कैसे करे, that is what we will be discussing in this article. If there is any doubt, please feel free to ask, right? If there is absolutely any doubt, please feel free to ask. Bhagwanti, good morning, right? So what is the author saying? Author is saying कि let us lower the wage rental ratio. ठीक है, wage rental ratio का जो easy मतलब है वो ये है, it measures the relative cost of labor and capital If the relative cost of labor is lower than capital, people will use more labor, less capital. If the relative cost of capital is lower than labor, people will use more capital, less labor, right? तो जो मैथमेटिक्स है, जो मैथ्स है, एक बिजनेसमैन का मैथ्स है, एक एंटरप्रेन्योर का जो मैथ्स है, बिजनेस वुमन का जो मैथ्स है, उस मैथ्स के अंदर लेबर शुड बी अट्रैक्टिव, more attractive than capital, and तब जाकर they will use more labor, right? So the author is saying that raise the profitability of labor intensive sectors, ठीक है, तब जाकर employment will get created, ठीक है. And there are many labor intensive sectors in India. This is again very important, right? So there is this body by the name of National Council for Applied and Economic Research or something research. It's a fantastic body. I used to remember the full form earlier. अभी मैं थोड़ा सा भूल गया अचानक से full form को, right? So there are 10 non-agricultural labor intensive sectors that they have identified, right? Which is construction, trade, land transport, education, food processing, textiles and garments. So next time when you are speaking about labor intensive sectors, don't just say textiles, leather, toys and then try to think कि क्या बोलना है. Write like this, right? Write like a scholar, right? That as per the NCAER's study estimated in 2022, top 10 non-agricultural labor intensive employers are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then say that these guys are already employing 240 million persons. Okay? And if we are able to decline the wage rental ratio, then other sectors or these sectors will become more labor intensive, right? So how do you do that? How do you achieve that? So we have already explained, right, that it is not an option. It is not an option to lower the wage rate. Okay? So the numerator, that's a non-starter. We cannot reduce the wage rate, right? Why we can't reduce the wage rate? Right? Because if you look at PLFS का data, ठीक है, regular employees who are the best category of employees, they are earning just 10,000 rupees per month on in 22-23 at constant prices of 11-12. So you are obviously earning much more in nominal terms, right? But in real terms, as per constant 2011-12 prices, you are still earning 10,000 rupees as per 11-12 prices. So purchasing power के हिसाब से बता रहा हूँ मैं आपको, right? Your casual wage laborers, they are getting only 4,500 rupees per month in terms of 2011-12 prices. ठीक है, जो self employed है, they are earning only 7,000 rupees per month, right? So clearly जो wages है, you cannot even think in terms of reducing them, they are already low. Rather you have to increase the real earnings, right? You have to increase the real earnings because productivity is increasing, labor demand is increasing, so real earnings also should go up, right? Now let us focus on the denominator. Let us talk about the cost of capital. अब इंडिया के अंदर जो cost of capital है, that is mostly determined by how the government is behaving, because government is borrowing so much. RBI is there to make sure that government's borrowing is on track, etc. That mostly the cost of capital, mostly the interest rate, it's a quasi-administered price is what the author is saying. What do I mean by quasi-administered price? कि ये तो फिक्स कर दिया जाता है. इंडिया के अंदर जो इंटरेस्ट रेट है उसको फिक्स कर दिया जाता है, कॉस्ट ऑफ कैपिटल को फिक्स ही रखा जाता है, बिकॉज गवर्नमेंट नीड्स टू बोरो ऑन अ ईयर ऑन ईयर बेसिस पे गवर्नमेंट इज बोरोइंग फ्रॉम द डोमेस्टिक सेविंग्स. सो गवर्नमेंट का जो फाइनेंशियल मैथ्स है दैट नीड्स टू बी प्रेडिक्टेबल, सर्टेन, इन द राइट डायरेक्शन. सो गवर्नमेंट मेक्स श्योर दैट वन वे और द अदर कॉस्ट ऑफ कैपिटल रिमेन्स फिक्स्ड, एंड I would go and extend myself to say that government ensures that the cost of capital not only remains fixed but it remains low. ठीक है, it remains low. So what is the author saying, and I believe that the author is right, that the cost of capital is not indicating the scarcity value of capital. You know that in economics there is only one truth, that everything is scarce. Scarcity is real. ठीक है, so capital is also scarce. There is not infinite capital available. There is only finite capital available, which either the private sector can borrow or the government can borrow. So given the fact that capital is scarce, the cost of capital should reflect this scarcity, and author is indicating that somewhere this system is broken. What is the evidence for saying that the system is broken? You look at the yield on 10-year government security, राइट? 10 साल का जो गवर्नमेंट का सिक्योरिटी जो बॉन्ड होता है उसका यील्ड यानी कि जो उसका इंटरेस्ट रेट आप कमाएंगे, इफेक्टिवली रिटर्न ऑन इन्वेस्टमेंट दैट यू विल गेट, सो दैट इज ऑलवेज इन द रेंज ऑफ 7 to 7.5% इन द लास्ट कपल ऑफ इयर्स, राइट? एंड जो कॉर्पोरेट बॉन्ड्स के अंदर भी जो रिटर्न ऑन इन्वेस्टमेंट दैट यू विल अर्न, दैट इज समवेयर इन द रेंज ऑफ 7.5 to 8% in the last few years. So very predictably we are standing over here. इन्फ्लेशन का कितना रेट रहता है? inflation ka rate is around 5-6%. So 5-6% is the rate of inflation. It can be higher also. It can be 6.5%, 7% also, right? Government के जो 10 year का जो government security है उसके अंदर what is it that you are getting? You are getting 7.5%, right? So what is the real interest rate? So if I place, let us say, 7.5% over here, and let us say I put inflation at 5.5%, knowing that it can be above 5.5% a lot of times. So what is the real interest rate? It is 2% or less than 2%. It is 2% or less than 2%. That is the cost of capital. Real cost of capital is 2%, right? It can be lower than 2%. It can go into negative also, because inflation India के अंदर 7.5% टच कर सकता है, right? So cost of capital, real cost of capital जो है वो इंडिया के अंदर less than 2% है. And some economists believe कि ये भी ज्यादा है, इसको और कम कर दो, ये 2% भी ज्यादा है, इसको हम. So I hope you are understanding that there is, essentially I'm not saying that this is right or wrong. This article has been written from the point of view of a labor economist, right? So economists के अंदर भी there are divisions. Labor economists are the ones who are going to, have, let us say, I would not say bias, but they are going to be more inclined towards seeing how labor utilization can go up, right? So when I say that some economists believe that this real cost of capital of 2% is high, इसको कम कर देना चाहिए, right? But this author, coming from this point of view, is saying that we have to increase the real cost of capital. तब जाकर हमारी जो ग्रोथ है that will become more labor intensive growth. ठीक है? So how do you do that? How do you increase the cost of capital? One way of doing that without hurting yourself is by gradually depreciating your exchange rate. If you depreciate your exchange rate, let us say $1 is 83, right? So I am, let us say, borrowing $1 and I have to repay $1. So let's say that I'll be uh, paying 83 rupees. Now let's say that I take this 83 rupees to 90 rupees. So if somebody has borrowed $1 is equals to 83, and that somebody has to repay 90 rupees, so obviously उन लोगों के लिए it is not making sense to borrow, because you borrowed 83, there was a depreciation. आप कितना भी hedging कर लो, but if you have to pay more than what you have borrowed, so you will not borrow from abroad. So the capital that is coming in from abroad, that you are borrowing from abroad, you will stop doing that. So depreciating the exchange rate, it will raise the cost of foreign capital. तो at least ये कम हो जाएगा. And because of depreciating the exchange rate, आपकी exports बढ़ सकते हैं. So more production, more jobs in your country, cost of foreign capital increases. Probably that will take you on the path of labor intensive growth, right? But we cannot do this suddenly, because if it is too sudden, then that will also be a problem. So you see that this rent wage ratio, sorry, ulta ho gaya. This wage rental ratio, this is a good academic construct, that we need to lower the wage rental ratio, right? This is a good academic construct, but it is not giving you all the answers. It is giving you a part of the answers. It is explaining to you that what needs to be done. What needs to be done in simple terms is that you need to ensure that the cost of labor is relatively lower than the cost of capital. Profitability of labor intensive approach should be relatively higher than the capital intensive approach. So we have to do a number of things on this line, on this route, to actually achieve this end goal of labor intensive growth. Okay. So for example, we need a larger menu of policies, right? अब जैसे for example, government is tinkering with this employment linked incentive scheme, that if you create jobs, we'll give you incentive. So the author is very proud of this approach. Author is saying that this, of course, right now जो incentives दिए जा रहे, they are peanuts, right? So nobody is going to be incentivized to create jobs for those peanuts. We know that, author knows that, there is no problem in that, right? Exam में ऐसे peanuts मत लिख कर आना, that's all. ठीक है? So the idea over here is that we need a serious ELI grant scheme. Serious scheme in the sense that जहाँ पर genuine incentives are being made available to the producer, right, for creating jobs, much like the production linked incentive scheme, right? So that kind of incentivization, whatever it is, not the present version of the employment linked incentive scheme, that we will give your EPF contribution, we'll give this, we'll give that. No, not that one, right? Genuine employment linked incentive scheme can definitely give a boost to employment intensive sectors, right? Apart from that, we also need to get rid of the rigidities, whatever they remain in the labor market, in terms of labor laws, right? And in terms of practices of the Inspector Raj, we need to get rid of these practices. There is a mess in the labor market still. So we need to clean up that mess. There is a lot of variations across state. We need to take care of that as well, right? I would go so far as to say that कि जो labor की जो skills है, जो उसका education है, जो उसका मोटिवेशन है, जो उसका एटीट्यूड है, राइट, सो उनके ऊपर भी हमारे को काम करने की रिक्वायरमेंट है, उनके ऊपर. सो वी नीड टू मोटिवेट देम. फॉर मोटिवेटिंग देम वी नीड टू मेक श्योर, मेक देम बिलीव that working as, let us say, a skilled laborer in the economy is the pathway for achieving your aspirations going ahead. They have to understand that, they have to believe that, तब जाके वो काम करेंगे. I'll tell you one thing from my this thing. People from good families in India who would not do any kind of blue collar labor work, when they migrate abroad to, let us say, Australia, Canada, etc., kind of countries permanently, they're happily working as laborers over there. Why? Because working as a laborer over there, you are sure that you are going to be able to have a decent life, you are going to be able to meet your aspirations, etc., you are going to be paid well enough, you don't have much of a choice elsewhere, so you do what you have to do, right? But in India you won't have to, you won't do, right? So we have to raise the standards of our jobs as well. So thoda sa uske upar we need to have a wider discussion obviously, but this article in my opinion is a very good starting point. मतलब हम लोग normally जो बात करते हैं ना, this article is a much more refined version in that sense. So analyze the role of wage rental ratio in promoting labor intensive growth in India. So this is something that we have done. And what policy measures can be implemented to address the imbalance between employment growth and labor supply. So I've given you a couple of policy measures. आप इन policy measures के अंदर you can add 2-3 more measures from your side and you're sorted. You're absolutely sorted. And this is a fantastic article, guys, right? I want to know your thoughts. So guys, we are going towards the 100th video of this series. I want to know each one of you का thoughts about how, each one, matlab everybody who has ever seen these videos and you have commented or not commented in the past, I need to know what your thoughts are regarding this series, regarding the teaching style, regarding the content, regarding what do you feel about economics as a subject. You didn't necessarily just heap praise upon Ecoholics and me. I'm not asking only for that. I'm asking for your genuine lived experiences about the subject, about the platform, about everything, guys, right? So please keep that request in mind. I'll be reiterating this request a couple of times over the next 2-3 days, right? Now let's talk about food inflation, right? Food inflation के बारे में बात इसलिए कर रहा हूँ because it's a very hot topic right now. I don't want to miss anything, right? So HSBC क्या कह रहा है? HSBC कह रहा है कि the main driver of India's food inflation could be scorching temperature, right? So rainfall may be playing a smaller role and scorching temperature may be playing a much larger role, is what HSBC is saying, right? So they have come out with a report, Pranjul Bhandari and company, they have come out with a report titled India Feeling the Heat, right? And they are highlighting that there's a significant increase in temperature and its volatility, right? So if you look at heat waves, right, and if you look at the correlation between rising temperature and food inflation, so that correlation has strengthened. So these words are very, very important when you are writing in economics, right? You have to write like an economist, right? So this word is very important, that the correlation is strengthened, right? And we are looking at across food categories, whether it is crops, perishable ones, durable ones, animal protein, across the board, this correlation has strengthened. So what is the conclusion? That temperature is becoming prominent, right? टिपिकली हम लोग क्या बोलते हैं कि मॉनसून बताएगा कि फूड इन्फ्लेशन कैसे बिहेव करेगा. मॉनसून तो बताएगा ही फूड इन्फ्लेशन कैसे बिहेव करेगा, अगले समर के अंदर जो टेम्परेचर है वो भी बताने वाला है, राइट? फूड इन्फ्लेशन कैसे बिहेव करने वाला है, राइट? सो द इंपॉर्टेंस ऑफ टेम्परेचर हैज रिजन. व्हाट रोल डू रेन्स एंड रिजर्वॉयर्स प्ले, राइट? सो द आइडिया ओवर हियर इज दैट व्हेन यू द मोमेंट यू ऐड टेम्परेचर टू योर मॉडल्स, तो जो सिग्निफिकेंस ऑफ रिजर्वॉयर लेवल है वो कम हो जाता है, राइट? When temperature is included without reservoir, models predictive power improves even further, right? So if you drop reservoir levels completely, then the model is improving even more, right? So you can understand where we are going with this. Okay. Food inflation, it can fall by 2 percentage points, lowering headline inflation by 1 percentage point, right? Is what they are predicting for the coming months ahead, right? So temperature, it's a more accurate indicator of food inflation for several reasons. Okay. तो एडवांसमेंट्स इन इरिगेशन इतने ज्यादा हो चुके हैं कि रेनफॉल जो है उसका इम्पैक्ट कम हो चुका है, ठीक है? बट टेम्परेचर के केस के अंदर वी डू नॉट हैव एन इक्विवेलेंट सोल्यूशन विल कम, राइट? हम शेड्स के अंदर फार्मिंग करना स्टार्ट कर सकते हैं इवेंचुअली ओवर अ पीरियड ऑफ टाइम. ऑफ कोर्स इट्स गोइंग टू बी अ मैसिवली एक्सपेंसिव एक्सरसाइज. शेड के अंदर फार्मिंग करना, बट देयर कैन बी सम मेजर्स अराउंड दैट, राइट. सो इरिगेशन के एडवांसमेंट की वजह से रेजर्वायर लेवल्स की जो इंपॉर्टेंस है वो कम हो गई है, बट टेम्परेचर का कोई सोल्यूशन नहीं है. एंड देयर इज अ 50% कोरिलेशन बिटवीन रेजर्वायर लेवल्स एंड टेम्परेचर, राइट. सो इसमें भी कोरिलेशन है, ठीक है. सो कैप्चर्ड बाय रिजर्वायर इज नॉट रिफ्लेक्टेड इन टेम्परेचर, ठीक है. सो जो पहले रिजर्वायर का काम था वो अब टेम्परेचर से होने लग रहा है, ठीक है. So keep this in mind that the importance of temperature, the importance of volatility, the importance of heat waves in understanding what's going to happen with food inflation, that is very, very important. So just add this to your understanding whenever you are speaking about food inflation, right? So do bring this scholarly point in that HSBC's report or Pranjul Bhandari's research shows that temperature is an equally important factor to look at, and going ahead we need to find a solution on these lines, because rainfall के प्रॉब्लम का हमने सॉल्यूशन इरिगेशन निकाला है टू अ सर्टेन एक्सटेंट, टेम्परेचर के प्रॉब्लम का हमारे पास कोई सॉल्यूशन नहीं, राइट. मे बी सॉल्यूशन ये है कि वी नीड मोर रेजिस्टेंट वैरायटीज ऑफ क्रॉप्स, मे बी दैट कुड बी द सॉल्यूशन, राइट. सो दैट इज द बेसिक आइडिया ओवर हियर. ओके, नाउ लेट अस स्पीक अबाउट अर्बनाइजेशन अ लिटिल बिट. इंडियन सिटीज, भगवंती, आई एम श्योर आपको समझ में आ रहा है. अगर कोई भी चीज में आपको डाउट रहे तो आप मुझे पूछिए, बिकॉज मैं थोड़ा सा बैलेंस करने की कोशिश कर रहा हूँ. The moment I speak too much in Hindi, I get complaints from English students. The moment I speak a little too much in English, I get complaints from Hindi students. And all the complaints are welcome. मैं किसी को भी ये नहीं बोल रहा हूँ कि आप गलत हैं, right? I'm just saying that मैं अपनी तरफ से पूरी कोशिश कर रहा हूँ कि I take everybody together. कहीं पर भी आपको डाउट रहे तो आप मुझे पूछिए. एंड भगवंती, आई कैन अश्योर यू कि अगर आप मेरे को 10 दिन 15 दिन मेरे को बैठ के सुनोगे ना मेरी इंग्लिश को, तो आपको समझ में आने लग जाएगा कि मैं कहाँ लेकर जा रहा हूँ चीजों को. आपको चीजें समझ में आने लग जाएगी, आपकी इंग्लिश भी इंप्रूव हो जाएगी. एंड जिन लोगों को हिंदी नहीं आती है, इफ यू वॉच माय लेक्चर, आपकी हिंदी भी इंप्रूव हो जाएगी, राइट. सो जस्ट हैव फेथ इन मी. ओके, नाउ लेट अस टॉक अबाउट सिटीज, राइट. सो हमारे सिटीज के अंदर प्रॉब्लम ये है कि देयर इज अ वाइडनिंग गैप बिटवीन अवेलेबल फाइनेंसिंग एंड स्पेंडिंग रिक्वायरमेंट. फाइनेंस अवेलेबल कम है, स्पेंडिंग रिक्वायरमेंट ज्यादा है, राइट. So what is happening is that quality of life, economic output, these are all going in the wrong direction. If you speak like about a city like Mumbai, भाई, we do not have footpaths to walk upon. हमारे roads के अंदर there are such deep potholes ना, मेरे को तो डर लगने लग जाता है, right? The kind of rush that is there in our public transportation system is unimaginable, guys. चाहे it is bus, चाहे it is railway station, the kind of pollution that is there on roads, it is unimaginable, right? Forget about everything else, guys. ठीक है, चलो वाटर एंड इलेक्ट्रिसिटी का ऑनेस्टली इन गुड पार्ट्स ऑफ मोस्ट पार्ट्स ऑफ मुंबई आई डोंट थिंक दैट देयर इज एनी प्रॉब्लम. व्हेन इट कम्स टू पब्लिक हेल्थ इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, इट इज एब्सोल्युटली insufficient, completely insufficient, guys. If you look at public education system, lot more needs to be done in the form of green spaces, open spaces for children, etc., etc. Lot more needs to be done, right? So anyways, coming back to the article, my crying will not stop, right? So finances less, spending more, quality of life down, economic output not so strong. So this is coming out of Indian School of Public Policy and Dun and Bradstreet International का research. ठीक है. So cities, obviously they are key centers of growth, right? And obviously they are going to play a very important role in India becoming a $30 trillion economy, right? So the title of this report is Economic Significance of Urban Areas, right? So they are clearly saying that जो demand for public services है, new infrastructure है, it is a huge challenge. It's a huge challenge, right? That built up area of major city in India is expanded by up to 10-fold, right? So cities are expanding and growing like crazy, right? But there are so many challenges that need to be addressed. We need to have inclusive growth, we need to have environmental sustainability, we need to have social equity. For that we need investment in infrastructure, in housing, in education, in healthcare. ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. सो इट्स नॉट एज इफ दैट ये रिपोर्ट के अंदर से निकल कर आ रहा है. कॉमन सेंस भी आप लगाएंगे तो आप यही बोलेंगे. इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर मीनिंग रोड्स, हाईवेज, राइट, पब्लिक इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, ट्रांसपोर्टेशन इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, अफोर्डेबल हाउसिंग. अभी बॉम्बे के अंदर यू गो एंड ट्राई एंड बाय अ फ्लैट, you are not looking at anything less than 50-70 lakh rupees anywhere in Bombay for the smallest flat that you can imagine, for the smallest flat that you can imagine, right? So that's a major issue, right? So इन सारी चीजों पे हमारे को काम करना पड़ेगा, तब जाकर अर्बनाइजेशन का फुल पोटेंशियल बाहर आएगा, and we will be able to have strong growth driven by strong demand from cities, right? But there is a widening gap which we spoke about, right? This is important over here, right? There was this study that was done by Niti Aayog and Asian Development Bank, right? So we are expected to add 416 million people to our cities by 2050, and जो urban share of our population that is going to be 50%. So these numbers are very important, because as of now in 2011 the number of, or the percentage of people in urban India was 31%, right? If you go by 23-24 economic survey and Niti Aayog studies, right, so they are saying by 2030 more than 40% of India's population will already be in urban areas. So whatever is going to happen is already happening now. Okay, so there is going to be an influx of 13 million people to urban areas, right, on a yearly basis, right? So naya Bangalore, हर हर साल we are establishing a new Bangalore, हर साल. That is, so the moment you start putting numbers in front of the examiner to explain the challenge, examiner understands the challenge very well, right? And of course there are going to be a lot of benefits because of urbanization, our growth, productivity, innovation, we will get a lot of benefits, right? And there is a strong correlation of 90% between the number of registered MSME and gross district domestic product, right? मतलब ये है कि जो आपका बिजनेस डायनामिज्म है, जो इकोनॉमिक आउटपुट विद इन अर्बन सेंटर्स है, राइट, दे आर इंटरलिंक्ड विद ईच अदर, they are interlinked with each other. So urbanization, gross district domestic product, registered MSMEs, ये सारी चीजें आपस में correlated है, right? They all are apparently going hand in hand, right? And cities जो है, they are obviously giving, you know, a lot of scope for social mobility, right? So tier 1 cities, they account for 28% of all jobs created by new businesses. This is the important. So you in this article you are getting clearly good 5, 6 points, 6, 7 points regarding importance of cities in an economic sense, and proper points with statistics you're getting, right? 97% of India's unicorns are in 5 cities of India, right? Despite the fact that these cities are comprising only 7% of India's population. Again, one more point in favor of cities, right? Now obviously we understand, right, that cities are important. What we need to do is that we need to ensure that basic infrastructure, last mile connectivity, health infrastructure, electricity, water, public spaces, etc., ये सारी चीजें हमारी रहनी चाहिए. Otherwise then the things are going to be very bad. So if you ever come across a 5-mark question or a 10-mark question on urbanization, this one small प्यारा सा article is giving you so much lovely masala, right, that आपको इसको include करना ही चाहिए in your answers is my suggestion, right? So assess the implications of widening financial gap between available resources and spending requirement for municipalities in Indian cities. Implication बहुत simple है, right? कि cities will not be able to live up to their true potential. That's the implication. जो potential है वो नहीं achieve कर पाएंगे. And how does this affect urbanization, economic growth, and quality of life? I have already explained it to you, right? So these were my 3 articles and discussion based on these 3 articles. Guys, I hope that you all have learned something new. I'm going to ask each one of you who has ever watched our videos, that this is, I think, the 98th video. 2 3 more videos, I'll be reaching 100. I want to know your thoughts, right, regarding the subject, regarding the platform, regarding the content, regarding me, regarding everything in life, right? With this, we'll bring this session to an end. We'll meet tomorrow again. Thank you so much. All the best, and Jai Hind to all of you.